Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and let's talk about Aventurine versus Jingliu in version 2.1, second half. Who is offering you a better investment value for your overall account? And we always start off first with current value. I think it's very important because it determines why do you need this character right now. They have to add value immediately. If not, you might as well either not pull for them or wait for a rerun banner. That's when you pick them up if they are much better in the future compared to now. So let's start things off first with the current value of these two units. There's many ways to explain it and discuss, but I felt the most coherent and easiest way is to start off with a pivot character like Dr. Ratio, since everyone has him. You either play him or you don't, you like him or you don't. Let's start things first off, of course, with the easiest way. You play Dr. Ratio. He's a free character, you are making use of him. He saves you resources because you need to pull for one less DPS. He's a very strong character in that fact. He synergizes very well with Aventurine. If you are building one strong team and you want your Dr. Ratio to scale well with time, I think that Aventurine offers a very good current value proposition for a Dr. Ratio character. Of course, current value is not everything, there's many other factors to think about as well before making a decision. But in this aspect, looking currently, if you play Dr. Ratio a lot, Aventurine offers a lot of current value for this synergy for now and even moving forward, because Aventurine is imaginary, he's a defensive unit, he supports a relatively squishy hunt character like Dr. Ratio, he has debuffs in his kit, he also has follow-up attacks, very synergistic playstyle with Dr. Ratio, tripping on my words here. And of course, the second part comes is, even if you play Dr. Ratio a lot, you simply might not have a second DPS build. Maybe you are a person that pulls for support characters. You put like Sparkle, you put Runmei, you put all the very meta defensive supportive characters, and you don't have a DPS. You can't clear content because you simply do not have the damage output. In that case, you do want a DPS to at least help you get to clearing maybe floor 12, not full stars, but at least getting some sort of resources to carry your account. In that case, Jingliu offers you tons of value if you're looking to push your second team, Dr. Ratio on one team for example, Jingliu on the second team. Very, very strong combination. The next question then becomes is, do you already have many DPSs on your overall account? That becomes much more easier to think about it. It's very clear both of them. If you have many DPSs in the Jingliu category, you probably don't need a DPS very urgently because you already have a free one in Dr. Ratio. Which brings me and nicely segues into the second question of alternatives. Now, I'm not going to put Dr. Ratio as an alternative to Jingliu. Let's start things first with the easier category, which is like Aventurine. So the big four, now it's big four, it used to be the big three, is the limited 5-star characters, the sustained characters. Why is Luota a destruction? Sus. But anyways, if you have Fu Shen, you have Huo Huo or Luota, any 2 out of the 4 of them pretty much settles you in the current game state for alternatives. You basically don't need a 5-star sustain already if you have 2 out of 4 of these characters. I would argue that you can even only just pick one and you can do the other last part with either a character like Lynx, for example, or if you're very daring, you can go with Gallagher now in version 2.1. But for the most part, if you already have 2 characters, I think you can chill. You don't need to rush on this character unless you care about the future value of this character, which we'll talk about in a bit, and the synergistic playstyles he plays into. But that is the first clear one. The second one, with his like Jingliu's case, her alternatives is also quite clear. She competes with other DPSs that can carry your account. Let's not talk about like Ice DPS specifically, Hyper Carry DPS specifically. Let's talk about it broadly as what DPS can carry your account. Imbibitor Lune is the one that's compared mostly with Jingliu. They were released at the same time. They are both destruction AoE characters, so they're the most similar in terms of competition. The most recent one that came out, of course, is Akirion, Black Swan, and many other DPSs, but I don't have too much space here. So let's just put the 3 of them as the primary alternatives to Jingliu in terms of carrying your account. Let's go one step further. Which of these characters do better in all kinds of content? I will argue that all 4 of them can perform well in both Memory of Chaos as well as Pure Fiction, but I think that Imbibitor Lune is not as strong in Pure Fiction game mode compared to these other 3 characters. Of course, Jingliu is not fantastic either. Akirion is probably reigning supreme right now in all game modes, but Jingliu is not too bad, especially if the enemies are weak to ice. You have a squishy monster as well. I think that she's going to be decent. All 4 of them are in fact very decent. So in my opinion, if you have 2 out of 4 of these characters, DPSs are not something you need to worry about. The only biggest question then will become is, what supports are you using? if you are using like Akirion and Jingliu, your Pella is going to be feeling super stretched. Of course, if you're playing Imbibitor Lune and Jingliu, both of them, you might struggle. Maybe your Tingyun needs more support and whatever not. But I think if you have Black Swan, who uses like very, very different supports to Jingliu, in that case it's like super nice, right? Because you can use all your DOT supports for Black Swan and then all your other like hyper carry-ish kind of style Pella harmony supports for Jingliu. In that case, I think it's like quite a good combination. So this is the angle that I'll be looking at things for the alternative section. Each of them have a lot of alternatives, and that's the fact I want to bring across. For current value and alternatives, there is no clear winner right now in the current game state, where they actually begin to differentiate themselves, because up till now it's just all talking about account differences. You either have a lot of sustain or maybe you put a lot of defensive unit. So it's not very useful to talk about only just about current value. We need to start to talk about future value right now, which is the interesting part, because this is where it actually makes a huge difference. So pulling for characters now is very clear cut. You either need them now, you don't, because you simply don't have the characters. Where it becomes fun is when you talk about what they can become and why they are going to be even better. Based on the game trend that is going about, Hoyoverse is always known to create content to favor new characters rather than slightly older characters. But first things first, future value. Aventurine plays into follow-up team compositions. He puts a massive shield on everyone, so he synergizes very well with like a character, for example, like Dr. Ratio, Topaz and Nambi as well. And if you guys haven't seen like the boss element weakness that we did, one fun fact for you guys is every single boss in the game, at least before 2.1, that's the analysis where I ended. Check that video out if you haven't seen it already. Every single boss in the game, elite monster boss, like the major bosses like Yanqing, Kokolia and stuff, are either weak to imaginary or fire, which means a team composition of Dr. Ratio, Topaz and Nambi tackles any weakness the enemy offers right now in the game state, which is very, very strong and super meta, because if follow up, these three could be absolutely destroying the meta once Topaz and Nambi gets a rerun. Likely maybe 2.2, who knows, right? I do see it as much stronger as well. And you don't have to take the risk, you can wait for the live stream, which is always in the second half, to actually make your decision. So if Topaz and Nambi is delayed, maybe it's not that pressing need. But I think that follow-up team comps are likely going to be much stronger in future and very, very efficient. For any of you new player just joining the game, you don't have too many DPSs, you want to play into meta, as well as not only securing your account for a defensive unit, I think Aventurine offers good value in terms of moving into the future too. On the flip side, other than of course the value of Aventurine, who of course gives debuff, supports characters like Akirion and whatnot, let's talk about the future value of Jingliu. Jingliu is a strong character, has always been strong, and likely will still always be relevant simply because she gets so much crit value for practically for free when she enters her enhanced mode where she turns on her eyes and stuff like that. A very, very strong character, a lot of damage, one of the only ice damaging units in the game currently, but the future actually doesn't look too enticing for this particular unit. What is the way that she can improve in value? We already have an ice harmony character that is very, very strong, so that angle of doing things is not very likely going to be super good, unless of course we get a 5-star Pella for some reason, which is a defense shredder ice in nature, which is very unlikely that they will release a 5-star Pella of the exact same element to synergize. I think that Jingliu's potential is more or less like very, very capped off, unless they specifically want to buff this character. So you're looking at a character who is more or less has most of her best characters already out in the game. I think that that's one of the crucial things to think about for a character like Jingliu. Hyper carry, will they actually implement more hyper carry style in nature, which I want to talk about now in like the next category, which is called potential, which is a bit more subjective, but I want to talk about things in terms of Hoyoverse point of view and talking about things from like economy, market standpoint from the company themselves. Would you want to release a lot more characters that are hyper carry where you just buff one, or would you want to sell characters that require you to have a very, very broad roster? You need like multiple limited 5 stars to have the whole team pop off. It makes a lot of sense now where your matured game players already have many characters to get them away from hyper carry style, one character, and move on into multiple DPS, everyone do damage kind of thing, so that they will keep up the spending. In my opinion, Hoyoverse likely will go to an angle where favors a bit more on every character doing a little bit of damage and making the meta shift in that way to naturally force people. in that sense, you can see here, the future for Jingliu is actually at its maximum in terms of the synergies that she has in the game, in terms of the alternatives that she has. She's only going to get more and more competition as the time goes by, because more DPS coming into the game, excuse me here, is going to be a normal thing. Every game will just have more and more DPSs. You see with Akirion, you see with the Nyx, the future Akirion that's going to come out maybe is an even better DPS. This space is going to get a lot more crowded. It's just a natural how companies want to make money standpoint. On top of that, I think that something else that needs to be talked about is the fact that Aventurine has the IPC backing him. It's very, very ironic. It's not only just a game sense, but every future character, we already saw in like the teaser, like this character Jade is mentioned a lot. You see a bit of images about her. They want to sell the IPC. The best way to sell IPC is, of course, linking up with their previous IPCs, because Topaz and Damey might have a rerun soon. Aventurine definitely will have a rerun soon in future, like 6 months from now and stuff like that. In that case, if you play along the IPC faction and they are known to synergize with each other, Topaz and Damey synergizes with Aventurine. If they want to play on this playstyle, they might force us to have a 4-team IPC kind of combination. You could argue that Doctor Ratio is close to the IPC and stuff like that too. So who knows, maybe Jade is going to come in to fill up this roster. In that case, from a logical lore standpoint, I would say that Aventurine has a longer way to run. He has much more interesting potential ahead, and whoever always likes to sell the newest character and try to make the recent meta a little bit more better. Whereas Jingliu is already at this point a bit of a dated character that might have already oversold. If you think about it, once you sell to like 90% of your audience, you don't really want to invest more resources into trying to sell the same character and their future eidolons in future as well. So that's my perspective on the potential discussion as well. In my opinion, for the future category, Aventurine does look a little bit more brighter compared to Jingliu, but nonetheless, both still very, very strong units. And the last unbiased category that I want to talk about in our investment value topic is free-to-play kit. Why is this very important is talking about investment value is very different when you're talking about one character with their signature light cone and one character with just their base copy, no signature light cone, using some random light cone as well. In terms of free-to-play kit, I think that Aventurine is going to stand out a lot more for a free-to-play player compared to Jingliu. DPS characters generally want to use their signature light cone, if not you will have a very, very big difference. So in this case, Aventurine is definitely going to be a lot cheaper to run. He runs with cheap alternatives already, free alternative. I don't mean to say his Doctor Ratio is cheap, but you can run Doctor Ratio with free-to-play kit. You can run Aventurine with free-to-play kit, and they will pretty much get a lot of value that you will see, by almost maybe 70 to 80% that you will get if you maybe put for both of their signature light cones. I think it's good value overall. Whereas a Jingliu without her signature light cone is going to feel a bit different, not going to be as strong. She does have like some free-to-play alternatives that we talked about on the build on the channel already, but in between both of them, naturally a supportive defensive unit is going to pop up a bit more. The main differentiator is of course Doctor Ratio, who everyone has for free. In this case, on the left hand side here, even if you put two characters together, this will be way more free and cheaper to build than a character like Jingliu. So that is my point of view for both of them. But I want to value add. I just don't want to like do a simple comparison between support and offensive unit, because that is going to just naturally the offensive unit is going to be much more expensive. If you look at all the other DPS in the game, Jingliu is actually one of the cheaper ones to run, with the exception of maybe Hun characters like Zealer, Doctor Ratio. Destruction characters like Imbibitor Lune and Jingliu tend to be a bit more affordable to run because they already have a Herta Shot 5-star light cone, unlike the Erudition characters who do not. Nihility 5-star light cone is also not too great, and Destruction characters have quite a few 4-star light cones to choose from. They are very nice in terms of being able to hybrid between Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction, so one character can actually compete in a lot of content. As you can see, most of you saw Akirion's difference between a free alternative and a whale alternative, but still, this is besides the point. If you want more Akirion contents already on the channel. But that's my thoughts on like free-to-play kit. Jingliu is still very affordable compared to the other DPS characters that we have in the game, but of course Aventurine tops out. And at this point, I think it's kind of clear who offers better investment value for the future. But if you're talking about at the end of the day, comparing which one you need more for your overall account, getting and clearing content right now is probably the most important thing. If you missed, and this is like my biased thought process, if you missed a character like Akirion recently, maybe you didn't manage to get her, you are simply not clearing content, It's a very lousy feeling if you can't build your second team to clear content. I would recommend for people who don't have a second DPS to pick up Jingliu. She's a very strong DPS. You don't know when the second rerun is coming about because it's going to take forever to go for the second rerun. They have to clear all the first reruns first before they start considering about even adding a second rerun. And at the current banner cycle of 2 new characters every single patch, a second rerun might probably take years to come, who knows, unless they add in a third banner, which is very unlikely as well. Maybe in the near future, who knows. In that case, Jingliu is probably one of the last chance you can pick this character up if you missed her the first time. You don't know when she's coming back for a rerun. Aventurine, most of the benefits, as you heard in this video, actually tells that he is going to scale into the future. Currently, would you think that he's an urgent requirement for your overall account? Why don't you wait for follow-up to become meta? Like once Dr. Ratio and Topaz pick these 2 pinnacle characters, because Topaz and Nambi is also going to have a first rerun, maybe in next patch. And then if you really like follow-up, then consider Aventurine. Don't do it the other way around, because you can really get by with other characters. For example, maybe like the other good sustains that you have on your team. And then at his rerun, consider, do you really like it a lot? And that's my honest recommendation. I think a DPS is probably more important right now in this current game state. A solid DPS, especially if you miss Akirion. If you are in a position of power, you have like both your whole entire DPSs stacked on your overall account. You have many supportive units. In my opinion, I think Aventurine is the better pick for future. But if you are in that situation, I hope this video helped you somewhat as well. That is my own personal opinion. And if you found this video helpful, do give it a like, subscribe for more such future content. We try to do this every single patch to the best of our analytical ability. And check out the other videos on our channel as well. And see you in the next video.